Hello again, I'm Mike and I'm the Sports History Collector. Today is my 21st installment of Athletes at War, and if you're like me, you automatically think of World War II, or any war for that matter, as all hands on deck, grab a weapon and fight till the war is won type of situation. Now that is definitely the case for some of the athletes I've featured, but the reality is the armed forces are a complex machine that takes more than just the soldiers on the front line fighting in the trenches or in the sand. It takes more people to train the soldiers, to make sure they have supplies they need, to feed them, to police them, and to make sure they have communication in the field, etc., etc. And today is no exception. So today we're going to feature baseball and Army's own Ewell the Whip Blackwell. Ewell Blackwell played for parts of 10 seasons, mostly with the Cincinnati Reds, but also with the Yankees and the Kansas City A's. He ended his career with an 82 and 78 win-loss record and an ERA of 3.30. Those stats only scratch the surface of what could have been if it were not for an injury and loss of a diseased kidney. Ewell was on his way to what many felt was a Hall of Fame type career. He had his best year in 1947 when he led the league in wins and strikeouts and even pitched a no-hitter. A great year to be sure, but the one that might never have been if things had gone another way, because after a 2-game cup of coffee in the big leagues in 1942, Ewell was drafted into the Army in January of 1943. Ewell Blackwell was a perfect candidate for the Army, and more specifically the Army Air Corps. In 1941, he had taken a job at Vultee, an aircraft manufacturer, where he worked on military planes. Seemed like a perfect fit and a no-brainer on where to place young Blackwell. When Blackwell informed his commander of his experience, the commander did the only thing that made sense. He made Ewell a cook. In April 1943, he was a corporal at Housie, Texas, and working in the mess. "I never boiled an egg in my life," he told the Sporting News on April 30th, 1947, "but I became the chief cook and bottle washer, and you can ask the boys if they didn't get good meals." In January 1945, Sergeant Blackwell was sent overseas with the 71st Infantry Division and landed at Le Havre, France. Blackwell's 71st Infantry Division arrived in Germany a few days later. The war was almost over, but deadly combat continued. "I never got shot at, but I got scared plenty when those 88 German artillery shells started going off over my head," he remembered. He was with George S. Patton's Third Army when he linked up with the Soviet Red Army in Austria. By the way, Patton's Third Army will come up again in the next episode. After Germany surrendered in May, Mess Sergeant Blackwell served his unit a banquet topped off with apple pies. He downed one of those pies all by himself. When the fighting ended, the Army found a more fitting use for Blackwell's talents, pitching for the division baseball team. His teammates included Major Leaguers Harry Walker, Ken Heinzelman, both of which were featured in the Memorial Day episode, and Johnny Wyrotek. In September 1945, he won the first game of the European Championship Series in front of more than 50,000 soldiers at the huge Nuremberg Stadium where Adolf Hitler had harangued the Nazi faithful. He was, however, the losing pitcher in the decisive 5th game against the Oise base All-Stars. Ewell Blackwell shipped home shortly after and began his career with the Reds and pitched in the 1955 season. Blackwell had settled in Tampa, the Red spring training home, with his second wife, Dorothy Davenport, and their daughters, Linda and Debbie. In retirement, he owned a liquor store for a while, then joined a large distillery company as a salesman. He was promoted to state manager in South Carolina and moved his family to Columbia. He played in old-timers games and was a regular in the spring training ball players golf tournament in Florida, which he helped organize. He was also elected to the Reds Hall of Fame in 1960. In retirement, Blackie and Dottie moved to mountains of North Carolina. He died in Hendersonville on October 29, 1996 of cancer. Ewell Blackwell, thank you for your service. And now for a tidbit. Something you might not know about Blackwell's no-hitter. It came in 1947 against the Boston Braves. A few days later, in his next start against the Brooklyn Dodgers, Blackwell carried a no-hitter through 8 1/3 innings before giving up 2 hits, and then he was able to win the game. If he could have only completed the no-hitter, it would have been only the second time in history that a pitcher pitched back-to-back no-hitters. The first, of course, and the only one, was Blackwell's teammate, Johnny Vandermeer. Johnny was on the top step during the ninth inning, wanting to be the first to race out and congratulate him if it had happened. Another real oddity to all this was that the two teams that Vandermeer pitched to no-hitters against were the Boston Bees and the Dodgers. The same two teams, sans the Boston name change from the Bees to the Braves, that Blackwell almost accomplished the feat against. Man, you just can't write this stuff up. You just can't make it up, I tell you. And now for my collection. The only thing I have of Blackwell's is a beautiful signed 1951 Bowman. Most of the time a card will catch my eye because of the pose or the colors or the background, but this one just reminds me of why he was called the Whip. Kind of gangly with a long neck and long elongated face, semi-car door ears, and a bit of a gap in his front teeth. Looks a bit goofy in an aw shucks kind of way. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Ewell Blackwell and a glimpse into his military and baseball career, and I'll talk to you soon.